And then keep in mind that there's probably a state pension, government pension over and above that. That's a little bit easier to get your hands on in the sense of you can call the government office and say, when I turn 65, given where I am at the moment and continued contributions into that fund, how much will I get by way of a pension? Your employment pension can be a little bit more difficult because you don't know what's going to happen in future years in terms of investment return. But nonetheless, you're just going to have an idea of what you have and where you have it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people just sort of say, well, I'll have a pension, everything's going to be fine, but they've no idea.
Well, I think more than they have no idea. The other problem here is that everybody just assumes because they've been contributing forever, and in a lot of cases to an employer pension plan and into a government plan, that will be enough. Because for their fathers and their grandfathers, that was enough. And what a lot of people miss is their fathers and grandfathers had an entirely different kind of pension scheme. The pension plans now are what are called contributory pensions, and the pensions that the fathers had.
Yeah, they were more defined benefit plans. I mean, I know a fella who locally who worked in, let's just simply say, a financial institution. He must now be, I don't know, well into his 70s. He has not touched the employment pension from his previous employer. He's got a few dollars in the bank. He can live, but he hasn't touched it simply because it's a defined benefit plan. He knows how much it will pay and when, and the longer he stays out from, away from taking that fund, the more it's going to increase and grow. It just doesn't. It doesn't need it. But that was a defined benefit plan. The defined contribution plan, as you correctly say, is whatever money you put in, hopefully matched by your employer, will grow depending on the type of investment you've decided, mutual fund or whatever. But it could go down as well. So you've got to be conscious of that because let me explain something to you. There's one thing for sure about retirement is once you get beyond the stage of working. And having a regular income, weekly, monthly, or whatever sort of thing. Once you get into that stage of life, you cannot turn the clock back. It just ain't going to happen. Now, you can talk about part-time income, etc. I understand that. But in terms of your, as it were, regular standard income, once you pass that stage of life, you can't turn the clock back and say, oh, my goodness, I wish I had saved more. You can't do that. It's not going to happen.
Well, that does make life a little more challenging. The one thing that I would hope people will understand is there's a big difference between living off your salary, which might very well be indexed, or if you need more money, you can always go and look for a higher paying job. Once you're retired, you're living on what most people call a fixed income, in that whatever amount that you have available per month, whether that's enough or not, in your opinion, when you're starting out, you have to figure out how to make that work. And you have to learn how to be a little bit frugal, as Bill would say.
Well, that's right. Probably, I think there's a guideline that sort of says that if you can have somewhere like 65-70% of your pre-retirement income as your income in retirement, you're probably going to be doing okay. So for every $100 of income you're making just now, you want to be in a position to have income of about $65 or $70 in retirement. But remember, that's going to last for a long time because you're going to live that much longer. And what you don't want to do, what you must avoid, is getting yourself into a situation, where you're going to be worried about it, you're going to be concerned about it, you're going to be uptight about the whole thing. You can't sleep, you can't eat, you're grumpy, and I mean, I know what that means. But there's all sorts of emotional, psychological impact to not having enough money when you retire. So the trick is, don't put yourself into that position. Start now.
I think one of the other things to consider here is if you do reach retirement and you don't have sufficient income, to live the life that you've been leading up to this point. It certainly doesn't mean life's over, but the bigger the gap, the more that you're going to have to adjust or make changes to your life, to your lifestyle, in order to close that gap to a point where you can actually live and enjoy yourself. Well, we've talked an awful lot about budgeting today. I think next week we're going to start talking a little bit about saving.
Yeah, well, I think the combination of investing and saving, sort of comes together. So we're going to go over some ideas about that, because you want to maximise your savings, your retirement fund, if you prefer, while you're still working. So there's some ideas that we're going to share with you on that.